And good evening, and thanks for tuning in the Definitive Debates one-on-one series, sponsored by Stoughton News on Facebook and pnpnetwork.com. I'm Mark Snyder, columnist for the Stoughton Journal since 1998, when I was about 10. Alongside Jeffrey Pickett, News and Program Director for SMAC, who'll be asking the questions. The responses are 60 seconds, rebuttals will be 45 seconds, and closing statements, if we have time, will be 60 seconds. We'll try to squeeze in as many questions as we can in the 30 minutes that we have. To explain a little bit about the recall on the ballot and to get the questions going, Bob Cohn will be the first person to get the question, and then Steve Cavey. So we're going to go right to Jeff, who's going to explain a little bit about the ballot question and then ask the first question.
All right.
Jeff?
Thank you, Mark. Well, this debate features the candidates running for the seat that expires in April 2018, that's this upcoming April, featuring the incumbent vice chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Bob Cohn, and challenger Stephen Cavey. So you will have two questions pertaining to this race on your ballot. The first question is, are you for or against the recall of Bob Cohn? And then regardless of how you answer that question, you then are asked to weigh in on your preference of the two candidates, again, Bob Cohn or Stephen Cavey. And again, just because this may be confusing, no matter how you vote for that top question, you must weigh in on the second question as well. And this is true across the board for the races featuring Peter Brown and Rick Hill and David Souza and Christine Howe. But this debate's all about the seat that expires in April 2018, Mr. Cohn, Mr. Cavey. So should I start with the questions?
You can, and the first one's going to go to Bob Cohn, the current vice chairman of the board.
All right, so I'd like to start off with discussing the progress that this town has made, because in interviewing you, and both of your sit-down interviews with me, got two very different responses as to how you felt where this town was going and the progress that has or hasn't been made over the last few years. So I'd like to have you discuss that.
Sure. Right now, in the present situation, we're putting in 2,213 LED lights. Took a year and a half to negotiate it, and the town got back $166,000 in reimbursement for switching to LEDs. They're triple the light output of what we have now. Any questions? Ride Plain Street, because that's the first major street that's been done. The other side streets they've been doing first. The second thing has been the fire department. We put a second ambulance on, which took away sending money out to other towns because we had to bring ambulances in, almost 375 ambulances. The next thing we did was we added up our police department and fire department. We secured that it has been grossly understaffed for years. They're better staffed. This town has better been protected right now. Costs money to do it, but we have done it.
Steve?
The current board has not been completely unsuccessful, and there certainly have been some accomplishments. I think the inclusion of LED lights in our town center is great, but typically our town has a fall town meeting, and we did not have one this year because there was nothing to vote on, because the Board of Selectmen produced nothing to vote on. There is still a hole in the center of our town, in the Malcolm Parsons building. We still have the train station has still yet to be resolved, and I feel like this board has not pushed forward the agenda for Stoughton adequately, and even where they have, I really am troubled by some of the issues surrounding it. For example, we are going to have some additional firemen, and that was paid for by a grant, which is great, but the fact is that you want to line up your expenses with your revenues, and this grant is going to expire soon. When they do, we're going to be on the hook for $1.2 million each year going forward, and that hasn't been addressed.
You have a rebuttal for that? Or-
Sure.
You don't have to.
The
You don't
center
want
of town has never been touched yet. I'm going to light the center of town up triple what it is now. It's going to be like noontime. That's a false statement. The firemen, we've put 7 firemen already on. The maximum was, we've been running with 9 minimum firemen, sometime below that. Your town is unsafe running it less than 9 men. We have now got it up to 11. And when you look, there is sometimes, and I'm going to stay to the public safety of this. The public safety is the police are still shot. Without public safety in this town and without running the adequate ambulance, the people that we have corrected are running safer now, and we don't have to go to Mansfield looking for an ambulance. That's one good thing.
Steve, did you want to respond to that or not?
I would very much. I think our town absolutely needs more firemen. They absolutely need more police officers. And with this, Mr. Cohn and I are of one mind. This town absolutely needs them. And we are far behind what we need with regard to public safety. My concern is that we don't have a plan to pay for it. And that wanting something is great. Needing it is absolutely true. We need to be able to pay for it, and there is no plan to pay for that.
Most certainly is, sir. You put a brand new hotel right up the street. Taxes, hotel tax. The Campanelli building is empty. $18 million worth of taxes are in there when they fill that building. It's enough to pay 3 times more that's paid in the center of Stoughton. So there is money to pay for this. And if we continue, there's also Newmarket down in the Boston area, the meat market down there. The people are looking into bringing this out here. It's just just heard this within the last 3 days. What tax dollars? We got to go out and get businesses. As far as the railroad station goes, we've already had one private developer in here because certain selectmen wanted to go private developer. We did talk to, the town manager did do this.
We'll get, actually, the next question is for Steve.
Okay.
We'll go right to that.
All right, so I'd like to discuss the bond rating of the town. Recently, the town of Stoughton was informed by Moody's that the bond rating had been upgraded to AA2, and also took its first ever ratings call with S&P. The town was able to borrow a very large sum of money all at once to pay for many different projects, but namely the borrowing that was required for the Stoughton High building project. But on an episode specifically to you, Mr. Cavey, on a show you were on last week with the other 2 candidates who were challenging the incumbents, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you more or less said that it was an insult to other people's intelligence to give credit to this bond rating increasing to the current interim town manager, Mr. Anastos. So for you, Mr. Cavey, I'd like you to expand upon those comments, and for you, Mr. Cohn, I'd like you to weigh in on who gets the credit for the bond rating going up.
Steve?
Sure. So the bond ratings for a municipality are the same as our credit ratings as individuals. And the fact is that it takes a very long time to build up a good credit rating for an individual, and it takes a very, very long time for a municipality to build up a good bond rating. In fact, this began in 2009. If you look in the 2016 town audit, you'll see that we have gradually, from 2009, moved up our bond rating, and that is because of a series of policies that have been developed over a very long time for our town. We have excellent governance from the Finance Committee, and they have helped substantially. The fact is that the data necessary to make that bond rating, to decide that bond rating, spans at least a decade, if not more. And to put the responsibility or the credit to somebody who's been here for 3 months and has yet to produce a single budget is not accurate. It does not reflect accurately how a bond rating comes to be.
Bob?
If it wasn't for Mr. Anastas, we wouldn't even have had a bond rating. We wouldn't even have went to Standard & Poor's. Yes, it was a group effort. As far as policy, 3 weeks ago we voted the policy. There was no policy as far as bond rating. It was one of the key things that got us this thing. Yes, the money, Finance Committee did a good job helping out this way. But the key factor in this was the policies, and the woman that did this with us had 41 years experience getting bonds from this town. It was the best bond rating we've ever had in Stoughton's history. It saved us $6 million. $6 million is a lot of money for the taxpayers, especially the seniors that can't afford this.
Did you want to respond to that at all? Or?
Yeah, sure. The fact is that to give credit, you mentioned that there's a lady who helped us out. She has 41 years experience with the town of Stoughton and helping us raise our bond ratings. And then to give credit to somebody who's been here for 3 months.
Can I respond to that?
Well, when he's finished.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Steve.
Not at all. I think that evidence points to the fact that this is not all on the shoulders of one person. I don't want to say that Mr. Onassis deserves no credit, but I believe that he does not deserve all of the credit. I don't think he even deserves most of the credit. And he is working under the instruction of the Board of Selectmen, and whoever was the town manager at the time would have done the same thing that Mr. Onassis is doing, and I don't think they would have deserved the credit either.
Excuse me, the town manager, I disagree with him. The town manager, previous town manager, wouldn't have done it. I've been on this board for 2 years. In the last 3 or 4 months, a lot of stuff has come out. That town manager wasn't going out for do this. And by the way, it wasn't only the town manager. It was a group of financial team that he put together that was so important. They worked night and day. But who put this thing together? Who went to Standard & Poor's? How did we get all this? It was the town manager that put all this together. And that's where it been. If it wasn't, we wouldn't even have had this. We would have went with 3.5% that they figured would have had.
We're going to go to the next question, and this one's going to Bob. Go ahead.
All right, we've more or less indirectly spoken about interim town manager Stephen Astos. Let's talk about arguably why we are here tonight, and that may very well be the few meetings where Mr. Rowe and then Mr. Anastos were put in as interim town manager. So I'd like to get your take and your explanation on how those proceedings went,
Sure.
and an explanation of how you feel that the whole process went down.
It wasn't supposed to be Mr. Rowe. It was supposed to be Mr. Tinsdale. But he was told by the previous town manager, if you accept this job, your future might be in trouble. That's fact. The next thing we went to, Bill Rowe. By that time, it was getting days before he was leaving. In advice of counsel, we were told that we needed a town manager. Bill Rowe is the next person that knows everything about this town. He's been here for many years. Bill took this on a very interim basis, and we hired him for that. And Mr. Onassis came in. Here's the ruling that came down last Thursday that said everything that we did was proper. There it is right there. The only thing we didn't do was when we set up the agenda, we didn't put his name there. And we didn't put his name there because he was done at 3 o'clock that afternoon. I had nothing to do with that. Mr. Brown worked that out with Mr. Onassis.
Go ahead, Steve.
Sure. As with the case in criminal cases when people are found not guilty, that is not the same as to say that they're innocent. The fact is that the decision that Mr. Cohn pointed to says that they were not found to be by a violation, which is different than saying that they did everything right. And I don't believe that they necessarily did. As far as the appointing of the town manager, the claim of the current majority of the Board of Selectmen is that they knew in December that they were going to have asked Mr. Hartman to leave. And now we've just heard that it was days before we needed a town manager that they chose Bill Rowe, who legally cannot hold that position. The fact is that there was very little due diligence done in choosing him and putting him in a position where he had to fulfill a role that he was not legally allowed to fill.
According to the Department of Revenue, Bill Rowe can serve in the position. His assistant takes over his position. The situation with Mr. Hartman was that he went to him too and told him his future would be in jeopardy. Mr. Rowe is 68 years old. and he told him, I will do this. There's a lot of games that were played here behind the scenes, and it's all coming out now. That's when it's all coming out.
I'd like to address that.
Good, Steve.
We had a town meeting, we had a,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Steve.
we had a meeting of the Finance Committee in which Bill Rowe showed up, and he was asking for a transfer of funds. And I asked him at the time, this is when he had already become interim town manager, if he was coming to the Finance Committee in the capacity of the town manager or as the town accountant. And he said both. It was not his understanding that he was only fulfilling one role. It was his understanding that he was fulfilling both. And that is not legal, according to Mass General Law.
According to the Department of Revenue, I will state it again, he was able to do this. What he forgot to tell you was the disrespect that he gave the town manager. He was sworn in legally, he was there properly, and he was humiliated by an individual there. And that's not the way you treat it. It's called respect for a town manager. That's what it's about.
Okay. All right. We're going to go to the next question, and this one is going to Steve. Go ahead, Jeff.
All right. The affidavits that were filed to basically put the recall in process, they were dated at the end of July. One of the charges against Mr. Cohn, actually all three, Mr. Cohn, Mr. Brown, and Mr. Souza, is a failure to uphold the town charter and the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So in respect to the town charter, because that's certainly been something that if you go on social media, the town charter, we're all junior lawyers out there debating the town charter. So I'd like to get each of your take on the town charter and its pertinence to the role of hiring and discharging a town manager.
Sure. Yeah. I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to pretend to be one, so I've had to rely on, my own wits, just as everybody else does when we read the town charter, but also the help of actual attorneys, and there are quite a number who support the position that our town charter only allows for the discharge of the town manager by one means, which is the majority plus one vote to discharge, and the contract with Hartman backs that up as well, while he's under the requirements of that contract. And our Mass General laws also point to the town charter having precedence over any contracts. And the fact is that the argument that the expiration of his contract was satisfactory for his discharge contradicts my understanding and the attorneys I've spoken with understanding of the requirements under the law.
Bob?
Superior Court judge ruled that 4 votes to take out, we didn't fire the town manager, we did not renew his contract. And his contract stated very thing that we had to let him know in December. We did let him know in December. We let him know in April. We gave him the opportunity to reapply for this job. He didn't do it. A Superior Court judge in the court, by the way, this was in federal court first. That's where it went. And he dismissed 5 or 6 charges. There's only 1 charge left that we have to protect. And by the way, the town manager's trying to buy his way out of this contract, and we refused it. We refused it. That's why we're here in a recall.
Steve?
The decision of the Superior Court is with regard to just a preliminary injunction, and that decision does not take into account any testimony. There's no discovery. They're looking nothing but the bare minimum. And the questions that they were examining there is whether or not there was irreparable harm to Bill Rowe, and sorry, I apologize to Mr. Hartman, and the other side, the opposite of irreparable harm. Isn't that there was no harm, but that the harm could be repaired, and that is by money. And that money is going to be coming from us. And so the preliminary injunction itself is a very minor part of the entire decision. It's only the very first step. And if he had won that, there's a likelihood that he would have been restored to his position.
Okay. Go right to the next question.
Okay.
And this one goes to Bob.
All right, I'd like to have you discuss Glen Echo, and that's another topic that has been coming up. And again, the role of this current board is debated depending on what side of the recall you fall on.
Debating what? We've never been notified about Glen Echo. I've been on this board for 2 years. Glen Echo has never, if it went to the town manager, it never came to the Board of Selectmen. That's all I know. In 2011, they bought it. And they put parking spots for 12 cars. And there was supposed to be picnic benches up there, ball fields, and everything else. Well, how are you going to have all this with 12? This is going back to town meeting, they sold this. If now it came to a point where the state made you survey this, and it will be very expensive. I won't even give you a number, very expensive. Linwell went to the town manager. Town manager went to our engineer. Our engineer went to the state and tried to work out something where they're going to take all our aerial views and to present it to the state, and it won't cost us anything. They're putting the data together now, and it's going there. It just started to pick up. I don't know what happened in the 10 years. As far as the selectmen in 2.5 years, Glen Echo never has come up to us.
Steve?
The issues surrounding Glen Echo, I'm concerned, are going to go over a lot of people's heads because I think there's a good number of people who perhaps don't know what Glen Echo is, where it is, and even if they do, they might not have very strong feelings about it. As far as a purchase, that was a town meeting. These things have already been decided. It's already been purchased. The main issues surrounding Glen Echo, on my behalf, that I'm concerned about, is the fact that we had representation. Legal representation that was dismissed and replaced with new legal representation, and they did not have the capacity to deal with Glen Echo legally. One of the main issues, or one of the issues for me that I've heard, just a minor point, is that there was a title search done for a component of Glen Echo that cost the town $11,000, and I'm not a title search expert, but I do know some who are, and that is an outrageous fee for a title search of that nature. So there's been a substantial waste, and I think that dismissing the experts, legal experts, who were already on that case and wrapping it up before it was completed was irresponsible.
Bob?
The council was never dismissed. Never dismissed. The new council never took this over. It went back to the original council, and the council recommended that we don't buy this property. I forget the attorney's name. He's been in contact. Steve has been in contact with him all the time right now. But we never brought Copeman Associates to do this. It was always K&P, and it's always been the same attorney. He knows all about that. So we never dropped that from K&P.
As far as the legal counsel recommending we not buy that was a decision that was made quite a long time ago, and this has already been voted on and has already been purchased. So I'm very confused by the claim that legal counsel did not recommend it.
Of course it did. It's in the records. What's telling me is I've been a member of town meeting for 39 years. I consider myself pretty experienced. I thought Glen Echo was a great idea. Now I understand we got hiking trails. Will someone tell me what they're going to do with Glen Echo? Will someone tell me what we're going to do with Glen Echo? First of all, let's get the thing squared away. None of us oppose Glen Echo. We want that developed. That used to be a spot from Boston to come out here, a resort. This used to be a resort town. And no one wants it. I want to see Glen Echo, but I want to see the people enjoy Glen Echo. The same thing is on West Street. We put a playground, and we have acres and acres of land there doing nothing.
All right, we'll go to the next question,
All right.
and this is for Steve.
So the topic of legal counsel was brought up. I'd like you to discuss the status with legal counsel and going from K&P to Copeland and Page, and to discussing, because there was a change made for representation. So I'd like you to discuss the board's role in that.
Is it your turn?
This is Steve's
Yes,
question.
my question.
Yes,
Steve's
yes.
question.
Well, this is Coleman and Page is a leading expert, legal expert in municipal law. They were dismissed and replaced with Copeland and Associates, which is, so far as I'm aware, so far as I've been able to track down, is a 2, perhaps 3-man shop, and is the address for the office is a PO box in a building, and actually finding the people working there is difficult. We had, so far as I can find, the justification for making this change was that they charged slightly less. I think it was about $5 an hour. So I think it went from $180 to $175. I don't think that's adequate justification for removing leading expert in municipal law.
Bob?
Again, 39 years history tells me Lenny Kopelman is a Harvard professor. He teaches at Harvard part-time. Lenny has seminars across the world. And part of it was, whenever we wanted something from K&P, it took time to get here, time to get here, time to get here. We went to Lenny. Lenny was the first man, a one-man shop when we came here. One man, because I was here, I hired Lenny 20-some-odd years ago. Very qualified. Brian Whittam, yes, it's a small firm. We don't need a big firm. And Jack is our labor counsel, better, one of the best around. One thing what Lenny did when he took this from us, he hired two, a labor and an attorney, and Lenny in the background. So I'm quite pleased what we hired. Mark will tell you the same thing. He was around when Lenny was here.
I'd like to make one very quick
We
point.
have to go right to closing,
We only have 1
unfortunately.
minute and a
We
half.
have about 45 seconds apiece. Please tell everybody why they should vote for you. And we're going to start with you, Steve.
Thank you. My name is Stephen Cavey. We are here tonight because of what I believe is the professional and ethical failures of the current Board of Selectmen, specifically the majority of that Board of Selectmen. That majority includes Robert Cohn. I'm asking for you to recall him and to vote for me to fill that seat so that we can begin to restore trust in our town government. I think that we need to be able to trust that our officials are going to respect the citizens and the town employees. I think that we need to be able to trust that they will fulfill, when they'll exercise due diligence in their decision making. Thank you very much. Please vote for me.
Bob?
My name is Robert Cohn, or Bob Cohn. I've been around for 39 years, experience. I have done a lot of things in this town. One thing I do disagree with this campaign was the trash thrown at my family, the trash thrown at David Souza's family, and the trash and the lies thrown against Peter Brown. Folks, you saw what went on. You read what goes on. Mr. Cavey has done nothing but trash me to death on everything here, paper after paper. I am not ethically. I wish we could have got in this so I could ask him what ethically I did. I have done nothing but serve you to the best of my ability. Please keep this board of Cohn, Souza, and Brown in. You'll be well worth what's coming next.
Thank you both for coming tonight.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Time just flies. Thanks to Tomas Bernotis, our timekeeper, Director Michael Hammond, CJ Mullen on camera, and Dave Young for his technical assistance. And remember to vote on December 5th, because if you don't vote, don't complain. Good night, everybody. Stay tuned for the next one-on-one debate.